Shweta is the Director of Engineering Networking at DigitalOcean. She manages a team of 30 engineers all across the world from her home in San Francisco. Before working at DigitalOcean, she had never worked in a remote environment at all. So we'll talk today about how that transition went for her, how she manages so many engineers effectively when you don't even see them face to face every day. And we'll talk about some special things that DigitalOcean does to make their remote employees feel like they're part of the team. A little teaser is it involves snacks and coffee sent as care packages. So stay tuned. As you know, Building Remote Teams is a brand new podcast. And to celebrate our launch, we have some really awesome discounts to give you from some of our favorite tools for remote teams. We have discount tools for 1Password, Donut, Hey Taco, Carrot, BirthdayBot, KarmaBot, and a ton more. All you need to do is to go to buildingremoteteams.com and subscribe with your email. You'll get a link to the page with all of the recommended tools and discounts that I mentioned above. Now, on to the show. Hey everyone, welcome back to Building Remote Teams. I'm here with Shweta Saraf from DigitalOcean. Shweta, welcome.
Hey, thank you for having me here. I'm really excited to talk to you.
Awesome. I'm really excited to have you. So where in the world are you physically located right now?
I'm located in sunny California and specifically in the San Francisco Bay Area.
San Francisco Bay Area. And where are we talking to you from? Are you in a co-working space? Are you at home or at the office?
So I'm in my home office, and this is where I spend most of my time when I work remotely for my job.
Okay, great. And then what do you see when you look around you? What's in your home office?
So I have a nice leather desk. I have a printer, a monitor, and of course my laptop. There's also a bed here because it's a guest bedroom when I'm not using this room. But the most interesting thing that people would remember about my calls is that we have a train track not too far from here, and occasionally we do get interrupted by trains moving fast, and it's kind of a nice thing because now people don't mind it. It's like they expect it, and it's a bit of a funny interrupt during long meetings.
Sure. So you've got your team there, and they're like, "Okay, everyone, one sec. We just gotta wait for Shweta's train to pass."
Yeah, and sometimes the moment is so perfect, it's like, I had to take a pause, or I'm talking through a meeting, and maybe that it kind of reminds me actually to take a pause, and especially in remote culture, listen and make space for others to speak up as well.
Cool. Okay, well, tell me a little bit about your role at DigitalOcean. Are you remote from your team? How many people on your team? A little bit about that.
Definitely. So I'm currently the head of software networking at DigitalOcean in the engineering department. So I've been here with the company for a little over 3 years. And when I started the company, it was half the size, which is around 200 people. I was the first one in California in leadership management role, and I went from working in an office in my previous job to being completely remote with DigitalOcean. So yes, I am remote, and I have my teams spread across 5 time zones throughout US as well as Europe and India.
Wow. So okay, so you were the first person to be hired on the engineering leadership side in California because the office is in New York City, I think. Is that
Yeah,
right?
so when we started, definitely we have a beautiful office in Soho in New York City with a great view of Empire State and the Ground Zero building, Freedom Tower. So New York was our key office, but ever in last 3 years, we have actually expanded to have an office in Palo Alto, Cambridge in Boston, Berlin, Germany, as well as a WeWork space in Canada and as well as in India. So we have 5 physical locations at this point.
Okay, amazing. So, what about your personal remote life? We'll talk about how you manage people in a sec, but how? So let's talk about your personal remote life. So, do you have to go to the Palo Alto office frequently? Do you go to New York City? What's kind of the rhythm of when you physically see people, or maybe you don't at all?
Sure. I mean, I do physically see people quite often. So let me recap a bit. So because this kind of illustrates how we grew as a company too, right? So The times when we didn't have Palo Alto office, I actually used to get all my team members once a month into this open air cafe near Levi Stadium, and we used to sort of use that time to brainstorm, work on planning, and also have some time to just code things up. So we have been doing that for a while, and since Palo Alto office opened sometime in 2018, we do have the option of going there regularly as often as a couple of times a week to whenever there are some events like happy hours or all company meetings. So personally for me, I have been going to office once in a while when my rest of my team is there or there is some event. And what I really love about is there's no pressure for me to go there every day with a long commute that I have to get there.
Hmm.
Instead, I use that time to really be more productive and more effective and maximize my availability across the 5 time zones I have. So, yeah, I mean, in terms of travel too, like I used to go to New York every 2 months, and it was pretty much like I had the empowerment to figure out my travel schedule. Like, of course, there were few team off sites which were planned, but apart from that, I was really
Right.
empowered to make a decision as to when I want to travel and when I can
Nice.
stay back.
Nice. How did your that transition work for you from working in a traditional office with like Cisco into working from home
Yeah.
effectively, from Friday to a Monday, presumably?
Yeah, that's a great question. And frankly, I spent a lot of time talking to different people at DigitalOcean about this before I made a decision to join. And I was someone who used to manage a large team at Cisco, and walking the hallways was something I did every day and enjoyed that style of, management and interacting with people. So when I made the transition, initially it was hard to wrap my head around this. I did the classic thing, which probably most of remote people do, is did not set my work hours. So I ended up working very long hours and not having boundary between when the work starts and when it ends and when my personal family time starts. So the initial phase was hard, but once I got used to things and got advice from my fellow remote coworkers who had done this longer than me, one of the things that they strictly told me is block your lunch and make sure you put your working hours, because it's very easy to not have any boundaries when you're working at home. So I think over the last 3 years though, I love remote work so much, and I really think it will be now hard for me to go back to a office full time.
Yeah, I think that's a very common thing for people who have gone remote and really embraced it and gotten used to it. That, yeah, the commute all of a sudden seems so so monot. Well, I think it's probably monotonous for everyone, but seems so much, well, the opposite of worthwhile, like worthless, I guess, because they can see how productive they are at home, presumably. And I think the research that I've seen is that people are more productive at home, but the downside is they do work longer hours because people don't look at the clock in the same
Yes.
way, right? Where normally you either have to carpool or you want to catch a particular train, so you have to leave at a particular minute when you're at home, right? You're like, oh, I'll just take my 1 hour lunch and then I'll just get back to work, and then it's after dinner, and it's like, well, I want to get these things done, and so I think it is harder to make those boundaries
Yeah,
for
so
sure.
you're very right. And that reminds me, I was just reading a tweet today which shared some research around how, if you're working remotely for your entire life, for example, you're saving at least 10 years.
Whoa, like 10 years of the
Yeah,
commute
like
time.
total 10 years equivalent of the time you would have worked. So that is huge. I mean,
Oh,
imagine
wow.
the stuff you could be doing or investing in your own personal development or family during that time, right? Yeah.
Or just
Be-
sleeping, really. That might be kind of
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Wow. Wow. Amazing. Okay, so that was your own personal transition to remote. How then did you transition to managing, I guess, a large number of people now? How many people do you manage at DigitalOcean?
I have 35 people who report to me.
35 people truly all over the globe. So how did you transition from walking the halls to, very interactive daily engagement with your team to doing remote? Were you able to find an equivalent that kind of matched your management style?
I think yes, right? Mostly it has been really positive, and I'll share a bit more color on why I say this, right? So I think many companies support telecommuting, but when you really think of a remote first culture, it takes a lot of hard work to make it successful, to make it really good, and for people to find their groove with it, right? So for me personally, the experience was I started with a small team of three people, and most of them were on the East Coast, and I was here on the West Coast. So getting comfortable with Slack, because Slack was something I was not used to at my previous job. But once I started it, I mean, there was no looking back. So the most the most cool thing that the vibe that we created in the team and we had going was, even if two people sat next to each other in the office, they would dump everything on the Slack, whether it is their thought process or an update. So the third or fourth person on the team who was not physically co-located never felt that they are missing out, or they are not having this connection with people, and are always catching up. So I think that was very fundamental, that even people in office were used to the remote culture practices and really championed that by using Slack as the primary means of communication.
Now, how did that happen where they would post things in public? Because I've been in companies or I've seen companies where it's mostly direct message, right? It's like, oh, hey, they've got this questionnaire, they've got this little announcement thing, they'll just
Mhm.
send it personally to the individual. And it's like, hey, like this would be great for everyone to know, or other people might have insight into this as well. How did they get to a place where they were comfortable kind of sharing it in these semi-private channels?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think that was the major shift in transition for me with managing people remotely too, right? Like DigitalOcean is huge on open and transparent culture, and even at the top level, the executives share with the entire company the state of the business, the finance numbers, and address any.
Really?
Yeah, like
Wow.
it happens every 2 weeks, very regularly, and the CEO.
Every 2 weeks, not even quarterly or anything.
No, no, we have this session called AMA, which is Ask Me Anything, and the senior exec leadership really does a great job of transparently sharing with every person, even if that person is intern and really here for 10 weeks, they have access to all our dashboards. So since that is kind of foundational, how people got to that point is by like diligent consciousness that we are this open culture. We don't feel that there's anything to hide. So even if it's a brainstorming idea, people put it on Slack, and people know that there's no judgment around this. It's not like people are calling it real. And of course, when we had to have more work around planning or committing to some dates, those things we took it on a Google Doc or a Hangout, so that there is some kind of dialogue before we share it on the public channel, right? But it was kind of a unsaid rule which came
Hmm.
through because of this open culture, that all technical decisions, thoughts, ideas will stay in public channel.
Wow. So I think it's a two-sided coin. You said where as you're posting things in the chat, like there's no judgments, right? Where the opposite of that would probably be vulnerability. I think where if people are not going to judge you, or rather the opposite. First is you're sharing something, you're being vulnerable with, hey, here's my crazy idea. It could be totally stupid and people could go ahead and stomp all over it, but you're
Mhm.
saying that but people actually don't judge it, and they just kind of will, like, just
Yeah.
how, yeah, I guess, how do they respond to like a dumb idea and not crush this person's vulnerability where they will not next time be willing to post this in a public forum?
I think there are two things I want to say here, right? Like, first of all, at DigitalOcean, one of our values is to speak up and to listen when others do. So
Hmm.
it's really encouraged for people to say what's on their mind, and others are respectful. And even if they don't agree with something, they give others the respect of hearing things out and, responding in a way which is not hurtful. So the second point is, we don't believe there are any dumb ideas. So say for example, if there's a newbie and they want to post something which is probably a common knowledge for someone who's around for 6 months, or a brand new idea, then
Hmm.
typically the way I see it go is that generally the tech lead on the team or a senior engineer on the team jumps in and provides some constructive feedback. Or we also do these one-on-one pairing sessions. So if someone feels that this person is going in a totally opposite direction, then they offer them to sort of sit down with them and do this kind of a pairing session so that they could work.
Mm,
So that's how it works. And yes, I mean, sometimes we have had incidents where the disadvantage of this whole thing, right? The whole non-verbal side of it. Like sometimes on Slack, with your choice of words, the tone is something you can't really judge, right? And people can
right.
perceive it as someone trying to be rude or attacking you. And there have been instances where that has happened. And when that happens, I think it's really the team and specifically managers' responsibility to have a chat with this individual, give them that feedback that this is how your thoughts are perceived, and then encourage them to have like a hangout or Zoom or meet in person if that's a possibility, to work on that relationship and communication.
Sure, and that's the next level because then you're able to get the whole context of the communication, not just the textual one. You can see their body language and you can understand the tone, giving you a better idea of what the real intention and the heart behind what this person was saying, I guess, to really clarify that.
Yes, yes.
What else did you find that you implemented or that you have, or maybe just generally that happens in DigitalOcean when you manage, you know, 35 people? You mentioned one-on-ones. Is that something that you do regularly with your
Yeah.
people? And
Yeah, so I have three managers and they have their own teams, as well as two architects who are part of my direct staff. And I do
Mhm.
meet with them every week regularly in a one-on-one session. At times, I try to even meet them for coffee if they are local. So, and that is the same thing that my managers do with their direct reports. They meet them at a regular cadence and make sure that this one-on-one time is spent. And at times, I also do skip levels where I catch up with people on the org, make sure I have a pulse on how they are feeling, they are happy, if there are any challenges. And then the same thing happens even above my level, where we have execs hold kind of roundtables once a quarter with the team, where the team has an intimate setting to talk to the execs and share their thoughts.
Nice. What does a one-on-one look like for your team, that you have with with your team members? Because I think it can take a lot of different forms, and it's a bit ambiguous. I think what that
True.
means, just saying one-on-one. So maybe can you walk us through maybe what it would look like when you meet with one of your employees?
Yeah, definitely. So, like I have seen two formats which kind of work with most of my team members, and some people gravitate towards one versus the other, right? So, I have some people on my team who are very, very organized, and we have like a running document of agenda items where the either person can add topics throughout the week as they think of it or as it comes to their mind. I mean, they don't have to necessarily wait for a one-on-one, but some people just prefer to have a list of things that they want to
Hmm.
talk to, and I always encourage them to, I mean, for me, the way I view this is the time for them more than
Hmm.
me, right? Like we do have other status meetings and things where I can follow up on business priorities, but this is the time where I want to make sure I'm listening to what challenges they are going through, and then the format they adopt is, hey, this is something that's going on, and I'm working on it. So it's more like I want you to be aware, versus at times they will be like, this is something I'm working on and I could use your help
Hmm.
here. So to me, empowering them is extremely important, and that's why I have them kind of direct how a one-on-one should proceed. The other format I have seen is where we don't write things down, but we are always in sync as to what's the next thing. So we are spending time on few urgent hot fires, but we are also talking about strategic things which are not of immediate urgency. We are talking about people and their development, and also specifically this individual's development as to what are the things they are doing to really ensure that they are getting opportunities to grow, and how can I help position that for them.
Great. Yeah, that's really useful. There's lots of really good resources out there on how to conduct kind of these. these employee initiated one-on-ones where they talk about the challenges they're experiencing, and I can link to some of those in the show notes. One thing that you brought up before we talked that you're excited about is how remote can enable inclusivity within companies. Do you want to touch on what you mean by that?
Sure. So basically, when we look at inclusion and diversity, it's a big problem in tech industry right now. And most of the time, it really takes commitment from leaders to invest in building a diverse pipeline, making sure your practices are aligned with, making interviews more inclusive, having all kind of representation on your team when you're interviewing, and all of those things. So I do feel remote culture can play a big part in this because now you don't have to restrict your search to a certain geography.
Mm,
And then you no longer have an excuse that, hey, I can't find, for example, many women leaders or women engineers in this area. You can
mm,
really hire people from anywhere. And that's why I mean, from my perspective, like one-fourth of my team is actually women engineers and women leaders.
wow,
So
great.
yeah, this was possible because we did have the commitment to work harder on sourcing a rich pipeline, working with my recruiting team, but also because we were able to hire them not just in San Francisco Bay Area or New York, but really we have people in Texas. I have one woman engineer who's a digital nomad, so she will be in a different country and will have different time zones throughout the year, but is absolutely committed to her deliverables and has been part of the company and very successful for a while now.
So talking about hiring women and remote, what's the connection between the two? Is it just that you now have a lot more candidates that you can pick from, and so the probability of having just better quality candidates who are typically underrepresented, or is there something else to it that I'm missing?
I think there is more to it. Definitely, the pipeline numbers start looking better immediately when you open up your search. But
Mm-hmm.
the important thing is for a woman, right? It is important that, they have the flexibility when needed
Mm,
to not spend time in a hour and a half long commute or spend that time on their own development or with their family or doing whatever they want like travel,
mm-hmm.
right? And I mean, this is important for every individual, not just for man or woman, but typically we see when women start their families and they have to take care of young children, it's always a constant struggle on a day to day basis as to when do I get home, what do I make for dinner. And I do think that by opening up this remote work option, they get a lot more relaxed. They put in a lot more, and all the time that they save, they really feel like they can have a rich life. Like they become truly happy, and in turn they can give a lot to their company versus when I see in many big companies, they do a good job of getting women in, but retention is a
Mm-hmm.
big problem. Like women start dropping out once their family grows or they feel like they're hitting a ceiling and there's no longer growth opportunities.
Yeah, I can totally identify. So I'm married and we've got three kids. I work from home, but my wife works, 10-15 minute walk from work.
Hmm.
And so it's almost, there's almost no commute. And I know that she struggles with that idea of, hey, what happens if I do have to commute for an hour? Like, what does that happen for my family life? And separate from that, even like the internal struggle that she has, I think I think as a woman, just that whole pressure to maybe stay at home with the kids. At least we feel that sometimes in our community, and versus working on her career. And she's very career focused, but there's always that pressure to try to figure out how can she do both. I don't feel that same pressure, and the men that I talk to
Hmm.
don't feel that same pressure of like, hey, how can I stay home more and work more? I mean, if they want to stay home, it's usually not because of the kids.
Yeah, yeah.
It's I want to play video games more. Certainly that's my case. But yeah, so I can see that would be really helpful. In fact, I know someone who's part of this organization, I think called like Moms Who Code or something, where
Mhm.
they're starting their new career after they've become parents and trying to start coding to try to
Yeah,
find remote jobs, which I think is fantastic because it does lend itself really well.
yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
you know,
And we
mhm.
also partner with an organization called Power to Fly. which is
Oh, what's that?
so it is dedicated to improving inclusion and diversity in tech environment, and especially for remote work, right? Like they themselves are completely remote, and they partner with many companies to open up remote work as well as local opportunities for women, and hold a lot of webinars and in-person events to really put companies in front of women who are looking for opportunities where people really care about the individual and not just do lip service.
Wow, that's cool. I've never heard of that. I'm going to look at that after the show. Very interesting. Very cool. Tell me about why you think remote is the future of work.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at all the research and stats, we can clearly see that, you know, the in this era, people are normalizing the ability to work remote and telecommute, right? People are no longer looking at a 9 to 5 job or trying to judge you for leaving early from the job, as long as you are committed and you get your work done and you're awesome at it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So to
Mm-hmm.
companies, this means access to a wider pool of talent, as well as, not investing in office space and everything that goes in with supporting an employee in office. There's a lot of savings in that matter, and what I feel truly is the biggest benefit is happier workforce, which is motivated to give their best. So remote is really a very powerful tool that companies should look at and really get it right, which could really save them a lot of money and build a strong culture of work.
Totally. Now, DigitalOcean, it just struck me now, is very remote friendly, and yet they do have a number of offices all over the world. What is the, what's the purpose for that?
Yeah, so this is something our CTO likes to call the hubs and spoke model, right? So as we are
Hmm.
already 500 plus strong at this point, and we will grow in the future. So as we hire more, for example, fresh grads, I mean, we know that fresh grads usually enjoy coming to office and they want someone who can be their mentor in those early years of
Hmm.
career. Plus, while you want to attract remote crowd, there are a lot of people who can't work from home or don't have the ability to go to a co-working space or just can't jive in that environment. So the way we see our offices are, we are positioning them for people who want to go to office and work from there or come there at a certain frequency, but really geared towards the fresh grads, and even teams like customer sales and account teams where they do like to work together and like to sit in one place, and at times even invite customers to check out our products. So that's what we are trying to cater to.
Okay, so it's really is it really dependent on on the individual's desire for how they want to work. It sounds like, or maybe some are like, hey, your sales, you're in the office for all of these, presumably good reasons.
Right. And DigitalOcean does a great job of supporting both kind of lifestyles, right? Like if you're in New York office or any other office, they provide you with a metro pass every month.
Oh.
So commute is covered. And similarly, if you're remote, they will cover for a co-working space or your internet, because I mean they do want you to find a co-working space if at home situation is not gonna work out. They have snacks in the office, but they also send a custom made snack box to all the remote employees, so
No, no, they sent snacks to your house?
yes, I wish I could show you the box. It just arrived today for this month. We even get coffee delivered for all remote employees because, I mean,
Oh.
obviously, that's what I'm trying to say. Like, they truly account for the remote experience in everything they plan and do. I mean, things like snack, coffee, but also like celebration of big events like hackathons are remote friendly. We can have remote in office teams. Also, when we have major celebrations, like for example, Thanksgiving, all remote employees are also getting a pie sent home for Thanksgiving.
What?
Yeah,
Come on, that's amazing.
it is. It is really
Wow.
amazing. Like you do feel like, this is a people first, remote first company, and
It's a food first company, it sounds like, really.
yeah, food is important. Good food is important.
Wow. Good food support. I'd love it if you could post some pictures. We could put them in the show notes maybe
For
of
sure.
your snack box.
Yeah, I will be
Yeah,
happy.
that'd be great.
Yeah.
Awesome. To change gears a little bit, I want to talk about managing engineers. I'm a software engineer. I've been doing it for, well, a long time. Like for so six effectively to
Uh-huh.
basic. So are there different nuances to managing, deeply technical people that maybe stereotypically are more introverted than managing other types of people like a sales or a marketer that maybe you've found, but maybe you've only managed engineers. I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, I've been mainly managing engineers. I've been in engineering for the longest time. So, yeah, I mean, there are subtle differences. Like what I have noticed is engineers really want to be motivated and empowered with a purpose, right, to achieve the goals and have an impact. And once you clearly communicate to them what this is, they really don't want to be disturbed or it's almost like, yes, tell me why is this important? What is it that you're expecting? Leave the how to me. I'll figure it out. That's how I've seen.
Now, do you feel that's different than other people, like a marketer or a
I
salespeople
think that
person?
every person definitely wants the space and empowerment to do their work, but I've seen in marketing or sales
Hmm.
or there's a need to kind of do more regular checkpoints, have a pulse on the team, and have collaboration on a frequent basis, right? Versus in engineering, there is a need to go off and do some deep thinking or write up code and do
Yeah.
a prototype and then come back and get feedback, do code reviews. Most engineers hate meetings without agenda, so we also want to work on minimizing meetings. And one thing I hear frequently from my senior engineers, architects, is that the context switch, right? Because these folks are architects and they are
Oh
expected
yeah.
to have their fingers into multiple projects, multiple areas, current problems, future problems. So, what they value the most is like a block of time where they are undisturbed so that they can crank out code or come up with a document for design or things like that. So, the way I feel works best when you manage remote teams is be very clear on what is the impact that this team is having, that individual is having, what is the accountability and expectation from this engineer, and then give them time to work on things and minimize the checkpoints as much as possible until you get into like a production rollout mode when everyone knows the heat is kind of turned up.
That makes sense. Tell me a little bit about like the life cycle and how people engage with kind of feature requests and that whole kind of pipeline of how you decide on features, how you review features, code reviews, that type of thing.
Right. So we do a bunch of things. On the planning side, we have excellent TPMs who with whom we work on a quarterly planning basis. So
That's a technical product manager, is that
yes,
right?
yes, a technical program
Got it.
manager actually.
Program
And we
manager.
do have
Okay.
a product manager as well. So the engineering, product, as well as design, support, and the TPM org work together at the beginning of the quarter to determine what are the goals based on our priorities as a business and come up with a list of things that the teams are going to focus on. Once that happens, the EM and PM work closely with the team to nail down the scope of the deliverable and set some metrics which account for what success looks like whether it's adoption or increasing revenue or like achieving a specific goal which this feature will
Hmm.
lead towards. So once that happens, then the whole sprint planning cycle kicks in, where every 2 weeks the senior tech leads and the managers and PMs sit down and do the grooming exercise, and the team then starts picking up tickets and delivering them. So during this process, we also have support org and the PM org who circle back with any feedback from
Hmm.
customers, and we try to make sure whether it's a bug or a feature request, we evaluate that and make space for it as deemed urgent.
Amazing. Last question. What is your favorite gadget or tool at home that is the most critical thing for your daily remote life that you just can't live without, apart from your laptop?
Oh, that's easy. It has to be my Jabra speaker. This is something my then manager sent me when I started remote work, because I'm in meetings the whole day and I really don't like wearing a clunky headphone or having AirPods sticking to my ear the whole day. So this is a very good speaker which has a great microphone and it works well. I even carry it if I'm going to some location and working from there, because I just don't like something in my ears all day long.
Okay, so you're saying you have no headset right now?
No, I don't have a headset. It's a very compact Jabra microphone speaker
Wow.
thing, which is what you see in some of the small conference
Wow,
rooms.
this sounds okay. I'm very surprised. So right now you have no headset on. You have this little disc thing. This is the Jabra Speak 510. I can tell from our recording thing, and it's pretty good.
Mhm.
There's no background noise. Wow. Okay, this is really impressive.
Yeah, yeah, I do send it to all my managers because I know that they are in frequent meetings and this is a lifesaver.
Wow. Okay, that's great. That's wow. That I'm blown away that you do not have a headset on. Shweta, this has been really great. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for having me, and I'm looking forward to chatting with you more in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So, hey everyone. So from Shweta and Jevin, thanks a lot for listening to Building Remote Teams. We'll see you next time. Cheers. Hey listeners, we're really trying to get the message out about how remote teams can be so awesome. If you found this podcast helpful, would you take 60 seconds to leave us a review in iTunes? It helps us rank to have more people learn about this show, and it helps us know which content is the most helpful. As a thank you, I'll try to read every review on the show and give you a shout out. Thanks a lot!